Hey, welcome everyone. My name is Kathy Markov, and I'm your facilitator for today. And I'm so glad that you came to this webinar presented by the Santa Barbara County America's Job Centers of California and the Workforce Development Board. My name is Kathy. As I said, I am a HR professional and have been working in workforce here in the Central Coast of California for many, many years, working with job seekers and employers and training workforce staff. So I'm thrilled to be here with you today. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get started on this presentation. So here we go. Today, I'm going to be talking about something that I think is super important: staying positive when you're looking for work. It's not an easy task, but as you'll learn, this is essential during this period of unemployment, but also throughout the rest of your life. I'm going to introduce to you a concept called the Positivity Quotient and why remaining positive is vital to landing that next job. So today actually is a little bit of a pep talk, and I don't know how many of you are familiar with the kid president, but I love this young man. Actually, you know, this is probably from 10, 15 years ago. I used to look him up. I know he's like an adult, but he was so cute when he was little. And he has this pep talk from a kid president. You really should on the internet. It's absolutely precious and priceless and a great message. I listen to it like every year. And so just like as here, you have so much awesomeness. You need to get out there and spread it. So we will be talking about this kind of thing because I feel like today, really, I'm giving you a pep talk. So, you know, I know that when we find ourselves unemployed, it actually is a time when we might feel quite embarrassed and upset. We might be afraid of telling people that we're out of work. Now, this is not a class about how to look for work. It's actually the pre-work to looking for work. But being embarrassed, being ashamed of being employed, you're going to find out is really something that is taking all that awesomeness and not unleashing it in the world. So we need to get over that. We need to be able to see that the only time you fail is when you fall down and you stay down. So I want to share with you, I don't know if you knew this, but this is interesting and important. All of these people you see here were fired from a job. You know, Steve Jobs was fired from the company he started. You may not have known that. He was fired from Apple in his 30s. He created that company and they showed him the door. Now, this caused Steve Jobs to take a period of real reflection on himself, what he wanted, and most importantly, how he showed up. He returned and he took Apple to the next level to become, as we know, one of the biggest companies on the planet. And how many of us don't have a cell phone in our hand? Even my Google phone would never have been in existence if it wasn't for Steve Jobs and his vision. You know, people would say, Steve, what's the next great thing that people want? And what he would say is, people don't know what they want. I know what they want. So, you know, he was certainly a genius and a very special thing that he had to do in the world, but he was fired. Walt Disney, did you ever think of that? He was fired from the Kansas City Star, which was a newspaper he worked for. The editor told him that he, if you can even believe this, he lacked imagination and he didn't have any good ideas. Can you imagine that? Walt Disney didn't have any good ideas. Oprah was fired from the Baltimore TV station that she worked for being too emotional and too involved in the stories. You know, someone there is really crying now that they didn't see the talent that Oprah Winfrey exuded. J.K. Rowling, this was the creator of Harry Potter. Yes, she was fired from the the London offices of Amnesty International. She worked there as an administrative assistant. Her passion was writing stories, and her bosses, they lost patience with her because actually she was in the wrong place doing the wrong thing. So they let her go, which created this opportunity. I mean, if you read her story, she says she would drop her kids off at school, go to the coffee house to look for work, but actually end up writing stories which turn into Harry Potter. So, that's like taking an opportunity and turning it around. Thomas Edison, the inventor of the light bulb. So he was involved in many, many experiments and trials, and he was fired from a job at Western Union. Now, Western Union used to be like the internet of its time. It was the thing that put the Pony Express out of business. It was the Morse code, right? Sending messages back and forth. And Thomas Edison was a brilliant designer, innovator, and he lost his job at the time, the most powerful company around because his experiments he wasn't cleanly, actually. He was spilling acid and eating through the floorboards. And so they said, you're out of here. Well, I'm sure they were sorry because Western Union, which used to be like the Google of its time. Now, what do we know Western Union? Maybe if we want to send some money to overseas or something, but who uses Western Union? Now we're sending our money with PayPal and Venmo and all sorts of other things. So, real big mistake on the part of Western Union. In fact, they had the opportunity not only to hold on to Thomas Edison, but to think about getting involved in the telephone. And they said, oh, the telephone has too many problems and is inherently of no value to us. Well, they missed the boat and they fired Thomas Edison. Mozart, he was fired. He was a musician in the court of the Prince Archbishop of Salzburg. What did he do? He said, well, to heck with that, I'll make my own music. And this is really important for us to kind of put into perspective anytime when we may be unemployed or in transition in our life. Now, this is the thing about life. Life is constantly changing. And I always love to show this slide when I talk about change. So, this is by Klaus Schwab from Charles Schwab, right? This was something that some investment brochure that I got. But it's kind of showing the progress of technology and industrialization. And I'm not going to go into all the detail, but you see how things have changed and evolved. And at each point, there have been a need to have transitions, not only in the use of capital to go from the steam engines to electricity to automation to now artificial intelligence. So capital is moving around, but it also impacts the labor market, right? And we're not even talking about pandemics and that kind of thing. But this is important to understand that we live in an ever-changing world and that decisions are being made almost instantly. Information is coming at us like a fire hose, right? And change has never happened faster. They say that we live in a volatile, uncertain, why isn't that coming up? Complex. There we go. Complex and ambiguous world. What does ambiguous mean? Ambiguous means that we just don't know what's coming up. We're not sure what the next thing is going to be, right? So some people call this the VUCA world. And that is true. Our world is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So what we need, and I use the term leader, because leader does not just mean the boss of a company or your supervisor. You lead your own life. And so it is very important that you have a vision for your life, that you understand the context of how things are happening, that you have clarity, and that you are agile. Agile, meaning that you can change, grow, develop, and unfold. It's unfortunate that we don't live in a world of permanent, lifelong jobs. But even with all those big, fancy people, they were not in permanent, lifelong jobs, right? Oprah Winfrey quit and started something new with some success and actually some things that weren't quite successful, right? things change. It's rare, if ever. Now I say if ever. I've met people who got a job right out of high school and stayed with it till retirement. But what fun is that, right? What's exciting and important is that, well, our life is fluid. Right? Job changes, markets change. The job pool is very elastic. Jobs disappear, but jobs are also created. And I know we want to say, oh, all those jobs went somewhere else. You know what? I've worked in workforce. That may be the case, but other jobs have appeared. And what are you doing to invest in yourself so that you're ready for anything, but also you're finding things that you love. You're growing, developing, and unfolding and learning more about yourself and all the different things that you can do. This is really important, right? Sometimes the waters are smooth and sometimes they're rapid, you know, like these kayakers. But one thing for sure, it keeps going forward and we need to be going with it, right? So I love this quote. It says, you're going to go through tough times. That's life. But say, nothing happens to you. It happens for you. So the goal here is really, as Joel Osteen said, to see the positive in negative events. And you say, oh, you know, everything's terrible. I lost my job, the pandemic, there's no place for my kids. I don't know if I want to go back to that job. The company folded. Yeah. Well, what is happening for you? How can you grow, develop, and unfold, be agile, right? In this very, very challenging time, challenging world, but see it as an adventure. So, another quote, I'll give you a lot of quotes today because I'm giving you this pep talk. The joy of life comes from our encounters with new experiences, and hence there's no greater joy than to have an endlessly changing horizon, for each day to have a new different sun. And I love this picture. And they're like the caterpillar metamorphosing into the beautiful butterfly. We have these opportunities in our life to rethink things and to turn into that butterfly. Now, it takes an active part on your part. We can't just sit around and say, things are horrible. This is why I have to put a plug in for America's Job Center of California and a whole host of other programs by the Employment Development Department, by the Department of Social Services. Now, a lot of these things I'm mentioning have eligibility. But if you're listening to this, I can make some kind of assumption that you're connected to the workforce system, either as a job seeker or an employer. And there are programs in all of these systems for both entities, whether you're looking for a job or you're trying to find a worker, right? The question is, how can you grow, develop, and unfold? You're a business owner. How can your business model metamorphosize into something new and different and better? And as a job seeker, how can you do the same? What new skills can you learn? We'll talk about that because that's really key, and how that relates to your attitude. So a positive attitude gives you the power to overcome your circumstances instead of your circumstances having power over you. And this is really the key. You know, and I'll tell you the truth. I was laid off. Well, I was fired, right? I had worked for a company for 7 years and I had moved myself up from a frontline employee to a vice president. I had a lot of responsibility. I had 52 people reporting to me, not directly, but I had a whole team of managers and supervisors, and I love them. And I think they love me. In fact, I was on the phone with one of my former employees today. We've all kept in touch. And the person who I reported to retired. I got a new boss. Well, that new boss had a very different idea of what I was doing. And frankly, I had a hard time making the changes that were needed in order to succeed in that environment. And I got shown the door. And it was very hurtful. I felt very bad about myself. And I knew that I needed to focus on myself and to turn that around, right? And to do what I did, which is to take back my life and to do what I really thought I was meant to do in life, right? to think about your work can be more than just a profession or a vocation. It can be your mission in life, your purpose in life, if you do the preparation first in your head, but then, I went back to school. I put myself out there and I started my business, my training business, and I've never looked back. I'm making more money. I'm happier than I've ever been. I love my work. It's my purpose in life. And it was because I'd been laid off. I think about that often. If I hadn't been laid off, it is likely I would have become very comfortable, right? Just getting up, doing my little exercise, getting in the car, putting in my 8 hours, coming home. Now, nothing wrong with that. Everybody's different. But for me, what I realized, what makes me really happy, I like projects. I like things that have a beginning, a middle, and an end. I like to train. I like to do curriculum design. I like to work on teams. But as a consultant, now I learned that about myself, right? And when that happened, what happened to my attitude, right? I took back my life. I took back my attitude. So here's some things to keep in mind about unemployment if you're feeling badly about that. Unemployment is a normal part of life for millions and millions of talented and very decent people. Being unemployed, it isn't a crime and it's not a moral failing. I think everybody has been fired from a job. Feeling ashamed of economic conditions is like blaming yourself for the economy. You didn't cause the situation. You didn't cause the pandemic. You didn't cause any economic changes as a result of it, and you don't control it. Bad things happen to very good and excellent people during difficult times. We live in a country where there are services for you. Now you have to figure out what those are. But we are so fortunate to have those kind of opportunities. One of the things that's come to me during the pandemic, I'm working on some international teams. I have worked with people in Afghanistan, in Ghana, in the Philippines, in Singapore, in Vietnam. Yesterday, I was on a phone call with someone in Shanghai, China. Actually, it was a funny call because I had one person from Washington, D.C. and one person in China. It was 3 o'clock in California, 6 o'clock p.m. in Washington, D.C., and 6 o'clock a.m. in China. But this is taking advantage of opportunities, right? We were all meeting on Zoom. That never would have happened before the pandemic. What is out there for you that never could have happened before the pandemic? You didn't create these situations, but for any situation that happens, where are the opportunities for you? So taking back your life means getting out of the wallowing and the sorrow and the shame, talking to people and normalizing what it is that you do. We're going to talk about this a little bit, right? The best way to get a job is through networking. They say over 40% of jobs are had through people you know, right? Talk about the 6 degrees of separation. You probably know every major employer in your community with probably not that far of a degree of separation, right? How can you take back your life? Where would you like to work? What would you like to do? And go for it. You can't assume that people will judge you. As I say, I think everybody's been fired. Everybody's been down on their luck. So, people have been through a lot of hard things they often don't like to talk about. I'm not saying you go around crying and whining, but to find a way to talk about it in an honest, authentic way and in a positive way, right? Because the more people you talk to, the better opportunity you have to get new perspectives and to make some decisions. So I say I took back my life. Yes, I did. I needed some healing. I did some volunteer work. I cleaned my garage and put in a garden, all those things that I wanted to do. And in the middle of all that, I was going out to networking events. I even went, this is funny, my husband's work had an open enrollment meeting for health insurance. And of course, because I was covered under my employer, I needed to think about what my choices were. So I went to the meeting at his work, which was allowed. You could have your spouses there. And do you know that I ran into an old friend of mine who was looking to hire a consultant? This is actually how my business got started. I went to a meeting about health insurance and ended up with an interview for a 9-month consulting gig. And that kicked off my opportunity. The next week, a friend of mine through a networking group called me and said she wanted to hire me as a consultant to do some curriculum design and training. So get out there. The more people you talk to, the better chances you have of getting your job. But you've got to stay positive, because positivity brings about a peace of mind, which relaxes you and your whole being. And it is very important that you're out there and you are relaxed about things. If you're panicking, no one is going to want to talk to you, nor are they going to want to hire you. I used to do this event called the Job Seekers Academy, and this was during the recession of 2009. And we had people then who had 2 years of extended unemployment. Now, they weren't subsidized, so they weren't getting more money. They just got unemployment for a longer period of time. And when that unemployment was ending, the recession was not over, and people were beginning to really panic. So we talked a lot about how can you relax? And we're going to talk about it in this training too. What are your rituals that help you find that sense of optimism? Optimism is a happiness magnet. If you stay positive, good things and good people will be drawn to you. Nobody wants to hire a frantic person who's begging for a job. And I saw too many job seekers try that tact. It does not work. You have to do the work on yourself to be able to relax so that you can draw people to you. Be optimistic and positive. I'm going to talk about why that's important. This is one of my favorite quotes in the whole world. It says, people will eventually forget what you did and will eventually forget what you said, but they will always remember how you made them feel. And in any time of transition, particularly when we're looking for work, you've got to think, how will I make the employer feel, my potential employer, the person who's interviewing me? How do I make my friends feel? If I go to this networking event, how will I make people feel? If you make people feel good, they want more of that. Everybody wants to be around someone that makes them feel good, right? So this is really important, because this is what is called, in my mind, the likability factor. Now, it's funny because I teach a class in leadership, and I call this the human relations guidelines, because I give them this little test to look at these factors that I'm going to show you. But I think if I call it the likability factor and they do poorly on this, they're gonna walk out of that classroom, right? But this is very important. So the first likability factor is be optimistic. And we were just talking about optimistic. You know, you don't want to be Debbie Downer all the time. That's what we laugh about, that concept of Debbie Downer, right? If you don't know what I'm talking about, look up Debbie Downer on Saturday Night Live. I can picture the woman, the actress who's Debbie. She has this whiny voice and everything's always going wrong. You know, who wants to be with her? She walks in the door and everyone's like, oh, get me out of here. You don't want to be that person, even though you may find yourself not in a situation you want to be in, right? Be optimistic. We had a family event happen. We needed to move back to Santa Barbara, which, you know, lucky me. But we had a home that we sold. We had to uproot our life. And I was a little nervous. I didn't know how things would go moving in with my mother-in-law. But on the day that I packed everything up and put it all with the movers, I was in my own car and I was driving from Paso Robles down to Santa Barbara. And as I came around, there's this point right after San Luis Obispo, Avila Beach. You come out onto Shell Beach, Pismo Beach area, and you come right out over the ocean. And on this afternoon that we were moving, the sun was going down, and I had this mantra come into my head. And it said, something wonderful is about to happen. And it was like, you know, bells were going off. Something wonderful is about to happen. This is a mantra that I've grabbed onto. This is about being optimistic. This is very important. And people like people who are optimistic, and you want to be liked when you're looking for work. The next thing, demonstrate genuine interest in others. One of the things I talk about a lot with people, either young people, I have kids in college and their friends and my kids are starting to get their first jobs. They know I work in workforce. They often come to me and say, what do I do? I don't know what to do. I say, do informational interviewing. No, I can't do that. Hey, everybody loves to talk about themselves, right? Anything you ever dreamed of or wanted to do, someone is doing it. And likely that person is not going to be there forever. People retire, people move on. So go talk to people. Think of someone and you'd really love to do what they do. Go talk to them, set up an informational interview, right? And you might find, oh my God, well, they went to school for 25,000 years and they have these. You can do that too. And there may be help for you to do that. I was doing workforce when actually someone I knew through my kids' school came into the one stop in Paso Robles and said, oh, I lost my job. My husband left. And she was in a bad way. Of course, I was friendly with her. So, I listened as a good friend. And I said, Nancy, what do you want to do with your life? Well, I've always wanted to be a nurse, but it takes too long. But Nancy, really? Do you know that the workforce system has a phlebotomy program that actually starts in about 2 weeks? It takes 6 months. You're licensed as a phlebotomist. You start working right away. And once you're in that, you can start taking other courses. You can be a nurse. Now, it may not take you, it might take you 5 years to do it. But you can do it. Get into the field. Start, even if you're starting small, and work your way up. And do you know it took her less than 5 years and she was a registered nurse? So showing genuine interest in people. I showed interest in her. She had interest in what I had to say, right? Don't be afraid to talk to people. And anything you see anybody doing, you can do it. This is a likability factor. They'll like you. They'll care about you. They might throw you some job leads. They might find ways to help you. Call people by their name. Be helpful to others. We're going to talk about that because that's a way to be liked, but it does something else for you. We'll talk about that. Create win-win situations. Make it a win-win for everybody, right? Think before you act. I'm sorry, my internet is a little bit slow. The next one is think before you act. Listen to others. This is related again to showing genuine interest. Smile. Be able to laugh at yourself, at situations, right? And finally, it's sort of like the bookend on all this. Be optimistic, right? That's thinking in the future, but be positive. Be positive right now. And again, it might sound easier said than done, but I'm going to show you some other things that are based on research. So here's a couple things. Lots of times we talk about the emotional quotient. The emotional quotient, intelligence quotient, your IQ. Usually when you go into school, they take an IQ exam. It seems like it's something that's kind of stuck with you for the rest of your life. It's a number representing your reasoning ability. Right? It's a problem-solving test. And they compare that to some statistical norms and come up with an average for your age, and it's taken as a number of 100. It could be over 100, it could be less than 100. Somehow, we think that that's important. Oh, that's going to lead your success in life, but there's more to it. Now, what the research is saying, emotional IQ is one aspect. And then something that's gained a lot of popularity is your emotional intelligence. Now, that is the capacity to be aware of, control, and express your emotions. This is the ability to handle your interpersonal relations judiciously and empathetically. It's the key, they say, to your personal and professional success. But guess what? That's actually a little dated. The new thing is your positivity quotient. So your positivity quotient is different than your IQ or your emotional intelligence. This is a percentage of what part of your time, right, or your mind, how often is your mind on your side? They say that positive intelligence, or your positivity quotient, it might be one of the biggest factors for reaching your potential in life, right? So it's not just about what just comes to you and being able to deal with it emotionally and think it through and problem solve. It's about, how do you reach your potential? Who tells you what your potential is? It's not someone on the outside, it's you, right? When your mind is on your side, you flourish. So this PQ, your positivity quotient, it measures the relative strength of your positive mental muscle, right? The part of you that's for you versus the negative factors, the part that's against you or might be even sabotaging you. So they say that this is the most widely used measure of mental fitness. So there's independent research that's validated this measurement to be the greatest predictor of how happy you are and how well you will be able to perform against your potential. And isn't that wonderful to think that we might be able to reach our potential? So it's kind of funny because when I was putting this together, this, of course, is who I thought about, Forrest Gump, right? We think of him as what? You know, he's sort of dumb. No, he's not dumb at all. He had a low IQ, right? But think about his emotional intelligence. He was right there emotionally. He could really control, even in the worst of situations. But more importantly, he had a very positive outlook. And here's some quotes from Forrest Gump. He says, "Miracles happen every day. Some people don't think so, but they do." Right? Miracles happen every day. Something wonderful is about to happen. You can do it. You make it happen, right? I love this too. You've got to put the past behind you before you can move on. So what we're talking about here, staying positive during a time of unemployment and looking at your positivity quotient, it depends on how well you're not, it's not just be able to look out at what's happening, but also be able to look in. Invest in looking in yourself. You deserve it, right? And how is that looking? You know, we go out and we experience the world with our 5 senses, right? How we see, touch, hearing, taste, smell. We don't talk so much about taste, smell because it seems like intuitive. Until, you know, COVID, people lost their sense of taste and smell. You read about that a little bit and how it impacts their quality of life. It's very important. You know, like putting a candle near or at your desk, eating, I know, something really healthy. I had the most delicious apricot this morning. Simple thing we bought in the farmer's market, but it creates a very positive feeling, right? What do you look at? What do you touch? What do your clothes feel like? Is there something that's uncomfortable? What are you hearing? We're going to look at hearing too, because what are you saying to yourself? We'll get there. But this is important. You need to develop a positivity ritual that takes into consideration how you are experiencing the world. So we are what we repeatedly do. So if you really want to reach for excellence, right? It's not an act. Every now and then I do it good, but you have to develop a habit. And we've known this for a long time. It was Aristotle who said that, right? I want you to start to think about what are some of your rituals. How do you go to bed at night? Are you sitting there on your phone and you wonder why you can't get to sleep? You know, one thing, my husband is very good about this. I actually don't have much trouble sleeping. I used to, till I developed a ritual. My ritual had to do with stop eating at night. Don't eat sweets at night, right? Don't drink too much water before you go to bed. Stop drinking water at about 7 o'clock at night. I was getting up to go to the bathroom all night. That's not good. It's because I was drinking a lot of water. I drink your water earlier in the day. Right? Make sure you're not too hot, not too cold. Make sure you have the right pillows. I was having neck problems. I got a new pillow. Oh my gosh. I sleep really well. My husband struggles a little bit, and he started putting on the sound of the waves. We've never lived in a time where it was more easier to create an ambiance in your home, right? So he puts on a little speaker, the sound of waves while we go to sleep, and he sleeps so much better. So what are your habits, and are they serving you to ensure that you remain positive? There's this great article. It's called 12 Simple Ways to Stay Positive and Happy. And I love this quote. It says, there are many ways to stay positive in your life, even when you're experiencing anger, sadness, or challenges. The definition of being positive is having hope and confidence in your ability to handle what's tough, along with remembering that nothing is all negative all the time. Right? This is a Debbie Downer, everything. Oh, there's always a bad side to things. Don't be that. Be the one that says there's always a good side, right? Now, I've been criticized of being too enthusiastic, but I don't mind that. In fact, today I was working on a program, doing another training, and the co-trainer said to me something like, you're always finding the positive in people. So, well, thank you. I appreciate that because I try, right? And how do you do that? Well, let's talk about some of these things that Angela talked about. The first one, be grateful. I'm so happy that sort of the mindfulness and meditation and yoga movements over the last 10, 15 years have really helped us to focus on gratitude. Probably Oprah Winfrey helped too, right? Do you have a gratitude ritual? Do you have a gratitude journal? Or are you just in the habit of being grateful for things? You know, here, this is not my grandfather, but I do love this picture. But this quote is from my grandpa. And he said, every morning he'd wake up, come out for breakfast, and he'd say, it's a great day to be alive. Now, there is a positive attitude, right? And gratitude. It was like 95 years old. It's a great day to be alive. Never complained about anything. This is how I want to be. We talked about sleep. Make sure you get sleep. Do whatever it takes. This little guy, so cute. You know, he's all cuddly and he's sleeping. Make sure you take care of your sleep. Be grateful. Get your sleep. I've always loved this saying here that's coming up, if it will come up. I'm sorry, my internet is like slow or something. But it's coming. This coffee cup, don't worry, be happy. You know, that song, my husband and my kids go, oh no, she's not singing that song again. But I love that song, don't worry, be happy. Yeah, easier said than done, but it is a mental habit, right? To think about that. Stop worrying, be happy. And I have to tell you, I've lived in many different parts of this country, and I've even lived overseas. And I feel like living here in the Central Coast of California, we hit the jackpot in terms of where we live. It's beautiful, even on days that are hot like today, right? It's so gorgeous here. Just go outside. We'll talk about that too. Willie Nelson. Once you replace negative thoughts with positive ones, you'll start having positive results. Don't worry, be happy. So you can think about times in your life when you had positive thoughts. I'll bet your life was going better. So this is what we're trying to create. You're in charge of what goes through your mind. Create a positive environment. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in the South Pacific, and I lived in a little shack, really, my husband and I. And we were the second volunteers to live in that little house. And frankly, the volunteers who were there before, they were kind of filthy. And there were a lot of cockroaches and bugs, and the walls were kind of dirty. And we thought, oh, we're Peace Corps volunteers, we've got to suffer. Well, after about 6 months, we were miserable, and we wanted to go home. And before we did that, we decided we would make a list of everything we hate about being here and everything we love about being here. And you know what? The list of hate was about half a page long. The list of love went on for over 4 pages. We thought, we can't just pick up and leave this. We looked at the list of the things we hated and tried to figure out now, which of these things can't we change? And do you know, over 90% of them were things in our control. And the number one thing on that list was that our living situation. We thought we both agreed. We never would have talked about it because we're Peace Corps volunteers. We got to suffer. No, you don't. The house was filthy dirty. We didn't like the dirty walls. We didn't like the bugs. So we put an all-out war on those cockroaches. And by the way, we won. We cleaned everything. We had clean things, but I mean, like, we moved everything. We got rid of anything that could possibly bring in a bug. We sterilized the whole place. We painted. I even made curtains for the windows. We took 2 doors and made a couch out of it. I know that sounds crazy, but it is true. We had cinder blocks, a door, another door. We leaned up against the wall, and we got these kind of foam pads, which were actually easy to find. That's what people lived on. And I made like this makeshift cover for it out of a sheet. I mean, we didn't spend a lot of money because we didn't have any money, but I can't tell you how much happier it made us to have clean walls, get rid of those damn bugs, and to have a little bit of decoration. Took us about a week. We spent maybe, I don't know, less than $100 because we didn't have any money on paint and a couple of, pieces of material to a sheet. But our life was so much better. So create a positive environment. You don't have to live in some big mansion in Montecito. Like, my daughter has a teeny tiny little studio apartment off of Bath Street because that's what she can afford, but she made it really cute and she loves being there. So what can you do to create that positive environment? Maybe you're looking for work and everything's online now. Look at your workspace, right? Make sure that it is positive, that you're happy to be in your office space working. This is really important. I've learned that. Make sure you have a good chair. And guess what? Even if it's a good chair, sometimes it can hurt your back. I actually have 3 different chairs that I could sit in. One is it wasn't really expensive, but like $100 office chair. And another one is about a $25 chair, one of those chairs that you lean on. And another one is one I bought for $10 at Goodwill. But mixing up the seating, if I'm sitting here for a long time, helps. It makes me happier, right? I have brightly colored things around me because that's what I like. I have that candle. I have some lotion that smells nice. This is very important. Remember, we take in our life through our senses. And even when you're working, don't lose yourself to that. Make your life comfortable around you. I want to show you this picture because the next thing is about move your body, get some exercise. This guy here, he's Canadian and he holds the record for the number of marathons anyone's ever done in their life. He's 80 years old. We have no excuses, especially where we live, and especially when we're unemployed, right? It's time to get out there and get moving. You don't have to have a gym and a personal trainer, right? Just get out there and walk and look where we live. Oh my gosh, the beautiful, beautiful places that we live. What does it cost you to walk to the beach or to take a hike or to do any number of things, right? Maybe you don't feel comfortable going out to dinner. You got to eat anyway. Take your little bag of popcorn to the beach or up in the mountains. I lived in Paso Robles. We didn't have mountains or the beach, but there was a park near my house that I went to every day. I walked my dogs there, and I did that a lot when I was unemployed and laid off. So find the things that make you happy. Treasure your experiences more than your possessions. Go outdoors more often. Meditate. Spend time with your loved ones in nature, expressing your feelings. Make it a give and take. I have a friend. We were in the Peace Corps with him, and he's so fun. Some of these pictures come from him. So he loves the sunset. And anytime we're together, even if it's snowing outside, he lives in Washington, D.C., come, we're going to go outside. We're going to watch the sunset. And as we're there, he plays guitar, so that doesn't hurt, but he's playing the guitar. His wife is there. My husband and I are there. And he looks out, he looks at us, he says, life is just a bunch of these. And what he means by that is it's those little moments. And if you think about those little moments in your life, was that when, I don't think it's unlikely that it's based around a possession like, oh, I remember the time I wore those fancy designer shoes. It's probably a sunset or a sunrise or a moment where you were with someone and you just belly laughed, right? Or someone told you they loved you, or you told someone they loved you. So treasure your experiences more than your possessions. These are really important. And you don't know what your current situation is going to lead to. I was telling someone that was recently unemployed this story. Eckhart Tolle wrote a book called The Power of Now. He is one of the most influential sort of spiritual leaders and teachers of our time. And do you know how he came to that conclusion? He was homeless. He said he lived for a year on a park bench. He's from Germany. He lived on a park bench for a year. And through that period, he said he learned so much and he was drawn to putting that in a book. So my point is that, it's really our experiences, not our possessions, that are most important. And how our mind is focusing on finding the positive in anything that happens to you. Here's another thing. I have a whole class. You can look it up on the YouTube channel for the Santa Barbara Workforce Development Board. But I have a whole class on the benefits of volunteering. It fills those gaps in employment. You stay productive, you build skills, all these things on the slide. But guess what? You can feel good about yourself. It helps you feel good about yourself. The next one is be a lifelong learner. Another class where I talk about the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. Right? We need to, I showed you earlier the progress of things, that everything is constantly changing. They say that people alive now are experiencing more changes in their lifetime than any other humans that ever existed. A fixed mindset is really setting yourself up for failure. Develop a growth mindset. It's never been a better time to learn. If you have a cell phone, there are free classes that you can get on. I was in a situation once where I needed to learn something. It was about using large databases and Excel. And yes, I know they have Excel training everywhere, but this was a very specific thing that I needed to learn. Do you know I took a free class with the world expert on this particular database that I was learning about from Stanford University? Now, the class was a couple years old, but did it matter? I was learning the rules of this database. It was brilliant and it was free. I could watch it on my phone. There are no excuses not to keep learning, growing, and developing. And it helps us to feel better about ourselves. I just met a guy that had a 5th grade education, but he's made millions of dollars in business. And he's one of the most well-read, intellectual, knowledgeable people I know. And he says he learned everything by studying on the internet. And nowadays, Harvard University has free classes. So get out there. There's no reason not to have a growth mindset. Be careful how you talk to yourself, because guess what? You're listening. This may be one of the most important things, right? What is your self-talk? What are you saying to yourself on a regular basis? Oh, I'm unemployed, I'm worthless. That is not going to land you the job and the next opportunity that you want. Be very careful, right? Because you're listening to yourself. So part of your ritual should be creating those mantras like something wonderful is about to happen, right? And in any situation, it's about perspective. I love this. This is an old optical illusion. But the question is this a duck or is this a rabbit? Can you see both? a duck, or a rabbit, right? This is about perspective. And sometimes in any situation, there's both. Maybe it's not the greatest situation, but what's positive in it? And what are you going to grab onto? What are you going to focus on? This is developing your positivity quotient. This is training your mind to be positive. So we're getting close to the end here. And I just want to say and sort of wrap it up, like, how do you harness your positivity quotient? That's your positivity quotient. Meaning, remember what we said that was? It's the percentage of the time that you live in a positive space, and not just to the outside world, right? It's the inward, in your mind. Are you going around with a smile on your face, but inwardly saying, oh, right? Or in your mind, are you like having a party of one, seeing through rose-colored glasses, letting everything you see be a learning, growing, developing opportunity, right? So find the good in the world. Develop a positive self-image no matter what happens to you. And you know, this is hard. We get all these images about us. Ah, we're too fat, we're too old, we're too this, we're too that. Ah, the heck with that. What are your good things? And emphasize those, right? I've always struggled with my weight. So I'm not the thinnest person in the world. Does it matter? I'm alive. I love what I get to do. I live in Santa Barbara, right? I'm surrounded by beauty, people I love who love me back. I can take my popcorn to the beach and have a party of one, watching the sunset. So develop a positive self-image no matter what happens to you, and be that lifelong learner. For life, I know it said lifelong learner, for life, right? Embrace that. How exciting. I live with my 87-year-old mother-in-law, and every morning she gets up, and between 6:30 and 7:30, she studies. She loves to read some different kinds of spiritual texts and books. She's expanding her mind, keeping her younger. Be that kind of person. And be my grandpa who gets up and says, it's a great day to be alive. Right? Here's a tool. Track your positivity and negativity, right? Take a week, and I don't care if you write in a journal or you write it down on a piece of paper, but you have to track it somehow. When I was unemployed, I really wanted to track my positivity and negativity. So I started in my phone, okay? I would text myself at key points in the day, whenever I thought about it. But when I first got up, how are you feeling today? Well, I'm a little frustrated, I'm a little down. Breakfast, how are you feeling? I'm feeling a little better, I got my coffee. You know, lunchtime, in between there I could too, but it had to be first wake up, breakfast, lunch, dinner, right before I go to bed. So at least every day I got 5 points of reference, right? And I was just tracking, are you on the upside, the positive, or are you on the negative? And it was really interesting. I started to track some patterns in myself. What was going on, how I was feeling. It's one of the ways I realized that when I was facing an interview, I wasn't as happy as I was when I was thinking about who I could market my training and consulting and coaching services to. That was a big deal to figure that out. So I challenge you, track your positivity and negativity. Give yourself a week. Do it on paper, do it online, send texts to yourself. It doesn't matter, but you have to record it. And then start to notice the patterns. This is this inward look, right? That's so important to develop that positivity. And I said this a minute ago, and I'm sincere about it. Look around. Look and see who's doing what you might be interested in doing. Because whatever it is, anybody could do it. You could do it too. Now you might need to prepare, right? You might need to do some things different, but you can do it too. This is back to Walt Disney, who was fired for lack of creativity. Can you believe it? I'm so glad they fired him. What if they didn't fire Walt Disney? We wouldn't have Disneyland. So he said, if you can dream it, you can do it. Now, this is a positive attitude. And this is really the attitude of, you know, it's not about being better than anyone else. It's about being the best you can be for yourself. Being positive and developing that attitude of not only gratitude, but of can do. You can do it. You are capable of whatever it is you want to do. If you can dream it, you can do it. So that's the end of this today. I hope you found it positive. It was super fun for me to put it together. You can go out and find some more information. You can put Positivity Quotient into the internet. There's an organization and a book and a guy that really promotes it. It's proprietary information, but I want to point you in that direction and explore that. There's some TED Talks about the Positivity Quotient, but at the end of the day, what it really is doing the work on yourself to ensure that you retain a positive attitude, not only during a time of unemployment, but throughout your life, because guess what? Then you'll be the kind of person that wakes up in the morning when you're 95 years old and says, it's a great day to be alive. Well, today was a great day for me to be alive, and I want just to thank you for joining us. The Workforce Development Board of Santa Barbara would love to get your feedback. Here's a SurveyMonkey link. This will be posted on their YouTube channel, and you can always go there and evaluate these. We're here, I say we because there's a whole group of people putting on these webinars, and we love to do it, and we love to get new topics and hear from you on a regular basis. But keep in touch with America's Job Center of California. Take advantage of all of their wonderful programs and opportunities to grow, develop, and unfold and create that life that you've always wanted to live. So with that, I'm going to sign off, say thank you so much. I'm going to stop the recording, and I wish you all well. Bye.